You know, it's something most of us do every single day, right? We throw stuff away. But what if all that waste wasn't really a problem we need to manage, but a hidden opportunity? I'm talking about a resource that gardeners, well, they have a special name for it: BlackGold. So let's just ask that question head on. What if your trash wasn't trash at all? I mean, really think about it. That apple core from lunch, those coffee grounds from this morning, all those leaves you raked up? What if they weren't trash, but were actually the key ingredients to rebuilding the very soil right under our feet? It's a pretty cool idea, so let's dive in.
Okay, so what is compost, really? Well, at its heart, it's basically nature's ultimate recycling program. It's this amazing process where organic stuff, anything that was once alive, gets transformed into this super rich, dark material. Gardeners call it humus, and you can think of it as the absolute essence of healthy topsoil. It's dark, it's spongy, and it is just teeming with life. So no, this is not just a pile of rotten garbage. It is a living, breathing thing that literally brings dead dirt back to life.
All right, to really get why compost is so powerful, we've got to look under the hood a little bit. We need to get into the science of this transformation. And trust me, it's not magic, even though it kind of feels like it. It's actually a controlled biological process. Think of it like a finely tuned engine. And the fuel for this engine? It's our waste. It takes decay and turns it into the very foundation for new life. It's awesome.
So, to get that compost engine fired up, you need a recipe with 4 key ingredients. First up is carbon, what we call the browns. This is all your dry, woody stuff. Think dead leaves, twigs, even cardboard. They provide the energy. Then you need nitrogen, or the greens. This is the wet, fresh stuff, like your fruit scraps and grass clippings. This provides the protein. And, well, just like us, this whole system needs 2 more things: oxygen to breathe and water to stay hydrated.
Now, getting this recipe right, that balance, is absolutely crucial. The best way to think about it is like you're preparing a balanced diet for a whole army of microscopic workers. The ideal ratio, scientifically, is about 25 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. But don't worry, you don't need a calculator. A really simple rule of thumb is this: for every 1 bucket of greens, your kitchen scraps, just add about 2 or 3 buckets of browns, like those dry leaves. Getting that mix right is what keeps the compost engine running perfectly, so it doesn't get all slimy or just, stall out.
So who's actually doing all this hard work? Well, meet the microscopic workforce. It's this incredibly diverse crew. First, you've got the bacteria. They are the heavy lifters, the real workhorses that generate all that heat in the pile. Then you've got the specialists, the fungi and molds. They come in to break down the really tough, woody stuff that bacteria struggle with. Then there are these things called actinomycetota. I know, it's a mouthful, but they are the ones that create that classic, amazing, earthy smell of good compost. And finally, you've got the bigger guys, the physical crew. Earthworms, sow-bugs, millipedes, they're all in there chewing, grinding, and tunneling, which does a perfect job of aerating the whole pile.
This whole process, it unfolds in 3 distinct phases. We can almost think of it like a 3-act play. Act 1 is called the mesophilic phase. This is where the first wave of microbes shows up and gets the party started. As they get to work, the pile starts to heat up, which kicks off Act 2, the thermophilic phase. And this part is so important. Temperatures can literally soar to over 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot. It's hot enough to kill off any nasty pathogens and pesky weed seeds, basically sanitizing the whole pile. Then, finally, as all the good stuff gets eaten up, the pile cools down for Act 3, the maturation phase. This is where it just sits and cures into that stable, beautiful black gold we've been talking about.
Okay, so that's the science. Pretty cool, right? But now let's talk about how all that microscopic action translates into real-world benefits that you can actually see in your own backyard. This is where all that hard work from our tiny friends really pays off.
Adding compost to your garden, it's like giving it a supercharged probiotic. Seriously, it floods the soil with tons of essential nutrients, it improves the actual physical structure of the soil, it helps balance the pH, it even suppresses diseases by bringing in an army of good microbes. So what you're doing is, you're not just feeding your plants, you're basically inoculating the soil and bringing the entire ecosystem roaring back to life.
Okay, but one of the absolute biggest, most powerful effects of compost can be summed up in just 5 words. It acts like a sponge. And that simple fact, it has massive implications for your garden, your wallet, and the planet.
Just take a look at this number for a second. 20,000. What on earth could that number have to do with the dirt in your garden? Well, there's your answer. For every single 1% increase in organic matter you add to your soil with compost, that soil can hold an extra 20,000 gallons of water per acre. I mean, that is a staggering number. It just shows you how incredibly powerful compost is for making your garden resilient to drought and cutting down on water waste.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a minute. Let's go from your garden to the entire globe. Because that little compost pile in your backyard, it's actually part of a much, much bigger story. This is the macro impact, where this simple act becomes a seriously powerful tool for healing the planet.
So if you look at the stuff we throw away, it's kind of shocking how much of it isn't really trash. About a third, almost 30% of everything that ends up in our landfills is food scraps and yard waste. I mean, it's perfectly good compostable material that we're just burying in a giant hole.
And here's why that's such a massive problem. See, when all that organic stuff gets buried in a landfill, it's trapped. It's cut off from oxygen. So it breaks down without air. That's called anaerobically. And when it does that, it releases a ton of methane gas.
And methane, well, it's not just any old gas. As a greenhouse gas, its ability to heat up our planet is absolutely off the charts.
Yeah, over a 100-year period, methane is at least 28 times more powerful than CO2 at trapping heat in our atmosphere. But here's the beautiful part. The composting process, because it's full of oxygen, it's aerobic, it produces almost no methane. So, think about that. Every single apple core or coffee ground you compost is a direct, powerful action you are taking to fight climate change.
But wait, the story gets even better. Composting doesn't just stop bad emissions, it actively helps reverse the problem. There's this process called carbon sequestration, where healthy soil full of compost literally pulls carbon dioxide out of the air and locks it away safely in the ground. It turns a problem into a building block for a healthier planet.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here, right? From tiny microbes all the way up to global methane emissions. So let's boil it all down to 5 key truths, the big takeaways from all this.
Number 1, compost is way more than just fertilizer. It is a total soil regenerator. It brings dead dirt back to life by rebuilding its structure, its fertility, and that whole living ecosystem inside of it. Number 2, composting turns waste into a valuable resource. It totally closes the loop in our food system. It's this beautiful, circular idea where the scraps from today's meals literally help grow tomorrow's food. Number 3, compost makes your garden way more resilient. It helps your garden hold on to water, fight off diseases all by itself, and just thrive with a lot less work from you. It's like you're entering into a partnership with nature. Number 4, your backyard compost pile is a powerful tool against climate change. Never forget that. It's a simple action that has a huge impact by cutting methane emissions and pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. And finally, number 5, and this might be the most important one of all, composting is accessible. This is not some complicated high-tech solution. It's a simple, powerful action that literally anyone can take, starting today, to make a real, tangible difference. Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about. I mean, if you look at nature, a forest, a meadow, anywhere, it's a perfect system. The cycle of life and decay just continues, and absolutely nothing is wasted. So the question for us is pretty simple. If nature wastes nothing, why should we?